Before we get into more specific recommendations about physical activity in children and youth, I just want to give you an overview of the CSEP physical activity guidelines. And for the most part, they're broken up into the 0 to 4 year range. And then sometimes we see the next group grouped into the 5 to 17 year range. So when it comes to the 0 to 4 age group, what they recommend is actually quite a bit of physical activity, is 180 minutes of physical activity throughout the day, so 3 hours. So this is for both toddlers and preschoolers. And this could be like just like a variety of movements, like for toddlers, it's just like what they call it tummy time, like kind of strolling around on their tummy or like jumping in their little jumper, but doing things that promote their movement and promote a lot of motor skills as well, which is also really important in that preschool age as well. Okay, so the focus here is just moving and just getting to know their bodies and to do the kinds of movements that help build those motor skills. When it comes to the 5 to 17 year age group, you often see this graphic here. This kind of looks like a 4, and they kind of highlight 4 different areas with respect to kind of physical activity and physical inactivity. So they recommend for 5 to 17 year olds 1 hour of like sweating. Okay, so we're in kind of the moderate to high levels of physical activity. So like running or playing tag or skipping rope or those kind of things that I loved doing when I was a kid, but those kind of sweaty based kind of recess activities. Okay, but in addition to just that sweaty time of an hour a day, they also recommend several hours of just movement. And it's funny, I'm thinking about this and I'm thinking about like how a school environment is. You know, I know when I went to school, it was 2 recesses of 15 minutes and 1 big lunch recess of 40 minutes. And I wasn't running for that entire time. So if we just focus on the school as the place for activity, if they don't in addition have a gym class, which they do, or if children aren't really participating in more sweaty types activities, it comes down to the parents as well to promote these opportunities outside of school too. In this report, they notice an interesting interaction between the amount of activity a person gets and the amount of sleep they get. And you can probably figure out the relationship, which is that like the less children and youth tend to sleep, the more tired they are the next day, and the less energy they have to sweat and to move as well. And that's why they argue about how important sleep is, and they recommend about 9 to 11 hours of sleep per night for those 5 to 13, and then about 8 to 10 hours for those 14 to 17 years of age, which is a great goal. But as we know, we live in a technology age, and a lot of these children, even 6-year-olds, are going to bed with their phones sometimes. And that screen time, that really dips in, and the light from the screen really keeps them awake and dips into their ability to have that full night of sleep. So as we're going to see a lot of the times in this class, a lot of things are related, and sleep is really important to having that energy to be active in the other days too. They also recommend minimizing sitting time and a maximum of 2 hours per day of in particular screen time and sitting in front of a screen, which I know a lot of children get a lot more. I don't have children yet, but I can imagine that as a parent, it's probably just a lot easier to just like give a child an iPad than entertain them. And so a lot of this falls on the parents as well to, to take, make the hard decisions and take these electronics away so children have the opportunities to get proper rest and to use their brains in other ways and to find more opportunities to be active as well. So in addition to these goals, the Active People, Active Places BC program framework also focus on specific goals for children and youth. And remember, the Active Places, Active People, this is really about, their focus right now is really on the community. Okay, so their goal is not only to increase physical activity, but it's also to increase physical literacy, a concept that we talked about in, I believe, week 2 of the semester. Okay, so their objectives really focus on like supporting those parents and caregivers in the knowledge and the capacity to provide these opportunities for children and youth to be active. Okay, and this extends beyond just the home setting, but also in childcare settings and in school as well. Okay, so to create these opportunities to improve physical literacy, to improve physical activity, and to build on programs that already exist, like the Healthy Schools BC program, which we're going to see later in the semester as well. But again, remember, with Active People, Active Places, it's really focused on the community more than on the individual. Okay, so in addition to like running around and being active in kind of a cardiorespiratory way, there is also recommendations for children and youth to start building up their muscles and start building up their bones too. And of course, in these years, that is when our skeleton is really building. And having the right amounts, not too much where we can cause damage, but the right amounts of strength-related exercise, resistance-related exercise can contribute to this healthy development as well. So when it comes to safe strength training for children, they recommend grouping people like by their age groups, because you'll notice that capacity changes a lot within like 1 or 2 years. So we don't want like 13-year-olds with like 6-year-olds. Okay, plus they're probably going to get bored with them as well. Okay, for younger children, the younger the children, the more kind of fun activities you need to incorporate in there. Okay, and encourage self-improvement and educational objectives, and not just competition. You know, if some people like competition, but not everyone is into that. And if we make sports and activities just about competition, that's really going to exclude some people. Right? So we want to give as many opportunities to people and children to find like a love for physical activity. So it's something that they incorporate in their lives for the rest of their lives, ideally. Okay, so you'll notice, and you can read through this yourself, and I'm just going to read it out for you guys, but as kind of the age increases, then we can start increasing resistance. We can start kind of working on some more muscle groups as well. But what's kind of a consistent theme is that we want to teach good technique, good form, one that's not going to cause any muscle imbalances or pain, right? We want to be gradual with how we increase resistance, and we don't want to kind of overburden these children to a point where it can cause damage, and to a point where like they're like, I don't like this. That's what we really want to avoid with children and youth, is for them to be like, this bores me. This sucks. I hate physical activity. We want to get away from that. We want to build that love. And again, that's why it's good sometimes to section off your groups so you can kind of focus on different aspects of physical activity, different types of activity, so you can like help people find the love within kind of what they enjoy themselves. Some more specifics here as well about strength training. It's not like a 7-day a week thing, 2 to 3 sessions a week max. And we're not talking about like necessarily like lifting weights, but it could be like body weight type exercises, right? Like for instance, sit-ups or like light push-ups or those kind of things. Okay. During growth spurts, we don't want to overdo the volume and intensity, because that can compromise that growth process. Okay, and just some basic good advice that's for adults as well. Multiple joint exercises first, focus on the large muscle groups first as well, increase resistance as capacity increases as well. And then under 15, we really don't want to max out the resistance, okay? Because again, that can compromise the growth process. Flexibility is really important, and that can start in young kids, not just kids that are into gymnastics. But again, it's about building the foundations of a relationship with exercise and a relationship with their body, right? So they know how it moves, and they know, they have that range of motion from a young age, which ideally they can ideally work on and keep throughout their lives as well. Okay, so they recommend about 3 times per week of this flexibility exercises too. However, here's the bad news. Children aren't getting enough. Okay, as much as these are the goals, is what we'd like to do, they're not even close. So in ParticipAction's report card for physical activity, let me just maneuver here, Canadian children got a D+, which, I guess is better than South Korea. And I guess it's a little bit better than the United States. And a few years ago we were at a D, so like that's actually pretty huge that we improved it that much, but we're still kind of far off, let's say, Slovenia. So you'll notice that we have been improving over the years. We were down at an F in 2010, so like it's sometimes exhausting as a health promoter to be like, I'm trying so hard, I'm trying to do all these things, and it's still like not that good, but baby steps. That's one of the rules in health promotion. Baby steps, we're gonna get there. We need to start having more of these coordinated efforts and working with different people and thinking of settings-based and policy-based interventions too, because they all make a difference. It just takes time. Okay, so it wasn't just our overall physical activity that got a low score in children and youth, but active transport, physical literacy, physical fitness, sedentary behaviors, active play. Well, organized sports was pretty decent, but we rated pretty low across the board in these areas. So it's, we have a lot of work to do in these areas, and that's something for you to start thinking about, and something I keep bringing up from week to week is like, where do you want to make a difference? If physical activity is your area, if that's something you're like, do you want to work on this group because they need it? Would you rather work with elders, with indigenous populations? Would you rather work with adults or older adults, or people in the Sikh community, or people in the Persian community? Is there a specific group that you feel called to work with if you do feel that health promotion is part of your life's work too? So something I want you to keep thinking about and keeping in the back of your head as we go through these things. So just to compare us across Canada, this is the amount of 5 to 19-year-olds taking at least 12,000 steps a day. And well, we're doing better than the national average, which is this one here. Okay, so BC often scores way higher than other provinces. It surprises me that Quebec is so low on this. Quebec usually scores really a lot higher when it comes to physical activity, but maybe not as much in their children. I'm currently in Quebec and I see a lot of active children, but I'm in a city, so that's always often the case. Okay, so we're doing better than the rest of the country, but it's not a competition. And, we could only, about half of British Columbian youth are getting that 12,000 steps a day, which, is an okay amount. Getting even more of that would be way better. Which is a decent amount, but they could be getting a lot more too. Okay, so take-home message is, with children, we do want to start building the cardiorespiratory capacity, the muscular strength and endurance, flexibility. We want to do things that promote a good body weight, all these things, body composition, I should say, all these things that improve fitness, but we want to do it in a way that kind of speaks to the different specific subsections of age groups, that are fun, that are not too competitive focused, that don't compromise bone growth, and that ideally kind of builds that lifelong love of physical activity. That would be our focus as individual health promoters, and that at a community level, we want to support the environments that are going to help kids and youth want to participate or enable them to participate in these activities too.